Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. We are riding the Townhall number 37, and I'm stoked to be here. I'm One Clue, your host, and with me today is Scott, the instigator of the Bitaxe, obviously. So this is going to be an awesome Townhall. It's nice to be here and nice to have you, Scott.
Yo, what's up? I am also stoked to be here.
This is always a nice event, just chilling on a Saturday evening and talking a little bit about news, tech, and what's brewing in open source, obviously. As always, we do have usually the steps that we accomplish, I might say, of quickly going over a couple of information about the last couple of releases that we do had, and furthermore, we want to dive into the conversation with everybody who's in the audience. For everybody who's new in here, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. This is basically the space for you to ask any kind of question that you do have. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you want to come up on stage and have a chat with us, also feel free to do so. But be reminded that these town halls are recorded and later uploaded so that other people can also enjoy the latest news and questions that we do have in this community. With that, let's start a little bit on a different topic. What's up with the GT?
What's up with the GT?
Yeah.
Talking about the Bitaxe Gamma Turbo, which for those who don't know is a new project that has dual BM1370 chips on it. We're shooting for overclockability, meaning that you should be able to get more than 2.4 terahash out of it. The chips are nominally 1.2 terahash each, so we're hoping to have the headroom to get more than that out of it. We're on the third hardware prototype, and it's looking pretty good.
On a third? Oof.
Yes. So the way I'm doing it with these ones is these are all 800 series, and I just keep adding X's onto the end of it. So if you see a Bitaxe that says 800X or XX or XXX, that is a prototype, and so it hasn't been released yet.
We definitely do have a naming scheme that is unique.
Yes. So I didn't want to bump the actual version before release, so that could get kind of confusing, and so I was trying to think of something I could put on the silkscreen to indicate that it is a prototype and not released yet, and so we've got X's. We're validating the 800XXX right now. It's looking pretty good. I mean, the XX was actually looking pretty good too. I have one running on my desk. There was a few small updates, changes for manufacturing. Ben's been working on a cool new heatsink design for it that I think should give us some of that headroom that I was talking about. But it's pretty close. I would stay tuned for that to be released here very soon. Of course, it is up on GitHub. If you look at the Bitaxe.org GitHub and go to the Bitaxe GT repository, you can see everything. You can see what's going on. You can see the issues that are there and what's resolved and what's not. And then you can also be the first to be notified when it's released, which is soon TM.
Soon TM, yeah. It's. I can't wait for it to see, because we do had earlier, I like to call it the early days. When we were experimenting with the BM1366, we also, or you and then MacFighter later on created previous versions of it, of the Bitaxe Hex. These days it's called the Ultra Hex because it does utilize the same chip that is also in the Bitaxe Ultra. It's a little bit of an older chip, but it's rather cheap to get plenty of them. And if we're taking even further look back, then we do have the BM1397, which is basically nothing in cost compared to the newest one. The newest ones that we do have, the BM1370. And I'm interested to see what they will bring up next. But anyway, what I wanted to say is now we will have a new device with a little bit of a different approach when it comes to plenty of things hardware-wise, especially when we're talking about how we do provide voltage to the chips individually compared to the hacks. And I'm stoked to see for further improvements and further other boards. We do have so many different boards, the Nerd series and all the other series that basically built on top of that, as well as now shortly coming out soon TM, the GT, which will hopefully inspire a couple of people to create something similar, new, kinda similar, whatever. I'm really looking forward to it. We're just experimenting with everything, which is an awesome thing. And I do see that with the GT, obviously it's not major compared to, it's not a major change or anything else compared to when we swapped over from the Supra to the Gamma. That was basically a needed change that was also quite rather quick, I'd say. And now with the GT, I think we can categorize it into some sort of, all right, we will play a little bit more with what's going on when we're talking about multiple chip designs.
Well, the Gamma Turbo, it does have some changes from the Bitaxe. I'd say
Obviously.
most notably is that you uses 12 volts. That's a pretty big change. So your power supplies for the regular Bitaxes won't work.
And we do have the XT30 connector.
Yeah, we switched the power connector. I was very adamant that we switched the power connector because the regular Bitaxes do not tolerate a 12 volt input. And so I just know for myself, if we had that same 2.1 millimeter barrel connector that was 12 volts, if I had those laying around my desk, I would definitely explode all my Bitaxes. So we have a different power connector, and it's called the XT30. I think the 30 means it's rated for 30 amps, but it's a significantly better connector. It provides a much lower resistance connection. It has much more mechanical, you say like grip. Like it stays connected very well. I believe it comes from the like RC market. They use it for batteries and stuff on drones and all that good stuff. But yeah, pretty excited about this connector. I think Ben found someone to make some nice molded plugs for the XT30, so it should be a nice experience to use that. The other changes is the form factor. It's a little bit bigger. It's designed to use a 60 millimeter fan instead of a 40 millimeter fan. Of course, also at 12 volts instead of 5. So I think that will be hopefully open up more fan options for people, and then of course the bigger fan just moves more air. I think it will. It should have a lot more options so that people can play around with it and overclock it, and that's kind of what we're doing now. I saw some people have made the prototypes and have posted them on Twitter, and it seemed like they got some pretty good overclocking out of it, so that's cool to see.
It's really cool to see. I mean, especially with the TPS that we do have on it, we do see it rather quickly goes to its limit when you do power a singular chip. It might be interesting to see what it's capable of if we do use 2.4 volts instead of 1.2. But I think having like two separate buck converters is a nice one, especially giving you the option to do maybe a little bit of tinkering of having each domain do its own stuff.
Well, the Gamma has it has the same TPS 546 voltage regulator, but now there's two of them, and it's set up in like a dual phase configuration. So
I'm wondering, how does this actually work if you do have these two TPS? Are they basically controlled in series, so if you do apply settings to one, it will automatically apply to the other one as well?
Yeah, they're designed to be connected. I think up to perhaps 6 of them can be connected, and so it actually has a separate communications port okay, developer says 4 of them, but there's separate pins that are used for communication between the controllers, and so they will pass the settings down to sort of connected chips. And you can kind of configure it how you want. I think you could probably do multiple different voltage outputs if you wanted to, but the way we're using it is connected in parallel to just provide more current at the same output voltage, which in this case is 1.2 volts, because the ASICs are in parallel as well.
I'm I'm really looking forward to this device. I can't wait to hold it in my hands. It's always nice to have something brand new and just something to think around. Especially, the most interesting fact about the GT for me is the change connector for the BAP, which in my opinion will also open up possibilities for other things apart from what I'm building currently.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that protocol at all? I mean, we have a new connector, like you said, which I think should give a lot more options there and hopefully be an easier connector for people to use. Do you want to talk about your work on the protocol?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's definitely a good idea. So for everybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, the BAP stands for Bitaxe Accessory Port, which if you do take a look on your Bitaxe right now, on the very top notch, you do have 5 or 6 pins that you might think you can utilize. Currently, nothing with them is happening apart from the ground and the 5-volt rail that is in there. But there are basically 4 other ports or I2C ports that you could use to do whatever you want with it. And we always had this idea to use it for something. In the early days, Duncan from IMGPIO, he created the first accessory for your Bitaxe, the Bit Halo, which displays like lightning effects or light effects every time your Bitaxe does find a share, and it does some crazy light show if you actually found a block. But apart from that, we haven't really seen anything that was utilizing the Bitaxe. So we thought in the early days, well, let's create a dedicated port for it, which we can later use for other stuff. And now fast forward 1.5 years later, we still haven't really used it. And on GitHub, we had a really, really long conversation and discussion about what we want to use or do with it, and especially how it should look. And Scott, it would be nice if you could dive into this, because you can probably explain it a little bit better than me, what kind of protocol idea you had, because you wanted to use something that's already there when we're talking about coordinates, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah. So there's 6 pins on the Bitaxes that are out there, and 2 of them power and ground, and so that leaves 4, and those are connected directly to the ESP32. The ESP32 is pretty unique in that it can make sort of any digital peripheral, whether that's I2C, SPI, UART. You can use any digital peripheral on any GPIO pins. So we've got some flexibility there. Like you could use the BAP as just GPIO, or you could use it as UART. And so, but what we didn't have was in this mainline, ESP miner firmware was anything happening. Like nothing was being done with it at all, and it was kind of waiting for something to happen there. And so the idea was to make the BAP protocol, and I have used this serial protocol in the past. It's very common on GPS modules, and it's also common on modems. I used it for like a satellite modem. But basically, it's a simple serial, like ASCII serial protocol, where you can subscribe to updates. Like an accessory could tell the Bitaxe, like, oh, I want to get the voltage and the hash rate every minute or every second or whatever, and then the Bitaxe will respond with this the data. It's sort of like comma separated data over a serial port, at that interval that you request. It's super simple. It has like a command byte at the beginning, so you can identify what sort of data or what command you're getting, and then there's the data, which is just comma separated ASCII, and then at the end is a checksum.
Which was quite a difficult thing to do, because you had basically this outlined idea, and then we had this discussion on an issue on GitHub on how this actually should look like, and I tried and I accomplished it to create a BAP protocol like it. It does have a couple of discrepancies maybe compared to what we outlined on the GitHub issue, but it does basically what it should do. What it currently lacks of is some sort of a communication on, or I'd say some sort of communication about what time frame you want to look at. So that's currently not implemented. Maybe I will do that in the future. I'm currently opting for something like 0.5 to 1 second. But the basic idea of having different formats or different informations that you could retrieve or that you can basically subscribe to is in there and is working. So on the prototype firmware that I'm working on, what I can do is I can use my USB to UART converter, plug it into the 2 dedicated ports that I selected for the current communication that I've implemented in there, and I can tell this USB dongle, hey, subscribe to hash rate, and then every 1 second or every second I will get the hash rate from the device, not from the UI, not from the API or anything else, directly from the device. And the cool part is you can subscribe to as many things as possible. So I could subscribe simultaneously to the voltage, to the hash rate, to the temperature, to the system information, to the model that's been used, and so on. So you do see there's plenty of potential for this, especially with using this in the future with more implementation of the BAP protocol, because the last bit that is currently missing in there, but I do have a sort of working prototype for this as well, is that I can send over changes to the configuration. For example, change the Wi-Fi connection or change the frequency. That's the last bit that needs to be finalized, and then I do think I can make it a PR on GitHub and make sure that it goes into the next release of the firmware. So we do have it ready for upcoming accessories that will potentially hit the market. And the coolest thing is it doesn't stop there. With this implementation, I'm just using 2 ports, but we can basically expand it to more. Theoretically, with future boards, we could expand it to like 6 or 7 pins if we do have enough of them available. But at the current time being, we do, so that wouldn't be an issue. I'm just tinkering here. So potentially with this, you could add Ethernet. I do know it's a topic that I personally don't like, but I've seen it that a couple of people are into that. Just some foods for thoughts. The coolest part, sorry, I'm just switching topic here really quickly, is I think that was yesterday that I read on Reddit that somebody was asking if they can use a USB dongle to plug it into Ethernet. And I just replied, well, no.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I guess it's just a common misunderstanding about how the Bitaxe works.
Yeah.
There's a USB port on there, but we're not running Linux, so we don't have a full USB stack or the ability to add drivers like you might on a computer. And if you want to do a USB to Ethernet adapter on a computer, it's not going to do anything until you have a driver, and that driver is made for Linux or Mac OS or Windows or whatever. We're not running an operating system at all, really, so it's just not going to happen.
At least not in the short term. I mean, Sean is writing that there is a derivative of the Bitaxe that does have Ethernet. Yeah, no, that's not correct. Wait, it is sort of correct. So the hash hammer from DTV Electronics, that's not a derivative of the Bitaxe. It does utilize a RISC-V, it does have the same size as the RP2040, and it runs Linux. So that's totally different from what we do.
You're thinking of the Raspberry Pi Zero. So I think they have a form factor compatible version of the Raspberry Pi Zero
Yeah.
that runs a RISC-V core processor, but that's like a Linux application processor. So they're running Linux,
Yes.
so they can run drivers and run a USB dongle. We're just not running Linux.
I mean, it's hella complicated if you're thinking about the whole network stack, especially the one that we do have already in there. It's not just like, hey, type in connect to Wi-Fi and now it does it magically. There's so much involved into that, and we have done so many changes, especially Anderson, to the networking stack and other people as well. It is bonkers that this thing still works. It's sometimes a little bit confusing on what you need to do with networking, especially if you're not totally into that. But we have seen plenty of people working on that, which is awesome. But the point is here, the BAP port will be supported in an early version, probably next release. If not, then 1 month later. So you will see this in July or early August, depending on when I can finalize it. But it's a nice thing, and it does what it should do. Like, because when you use something like I2C or UART or anything else in general, timing is always a thing that you need to accomplish in one way or the other, so that you don't destroy other things, which could get a little bit confusing. But it's okay working, and I need to play around with the timing that I currently do have of 1 second. I should reduce it to half of a second to make it a little bit more snappy, especially for the goal that I'm trying to do with the current implementation of displaying information on something nicer than the SSD 1306.
What's I forget, how often is the hash rate on the display of the Bitaxe updated? No.
It's probably 0.5 or 100 milliseconds. I'm not 100% sure, and would need to look it up. But it's really quick.
We wouldn't want to go faster than that, right? We can't. I don't know if there's much use in just sending the exact same data over and over.
I mean, ideally, if, let's say, for example, you do have another sort of a display and you're not utilizing the smaller screen on the Bitaxe itself, then you wouldn't even plug in the SSD 1306, so that shouldn't matter. But in general, I need to speed it up. Especially we have sped up the CPU already in the SDK config, so that's totally fine. And it's working. We do have a couple of other PRs open that will speed up other things as well for the ESP32. So with that, I just need to do some testing and tinkering, but the last 3 weeks were stressful, busy as always, and working 9 hours a day, and then coming back and doing some family stuff and going over to doing some open source stuff. Man, time's flying by. I don't know where the last 2 weeks went by, but now I'm here. So
well, cool. I mean, I guess on the Ethernet topic, like, I encourage people to play around with it. I think that I personally am not very interested in adding Ethernet.
Yeah, I mean, me neither.
There's a lot of Ethernet miners out there that you can get. I think the Bitaxe was probably the first Wi-Fi native Bitcoin miner. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it certainly was one of the few that actually supported Wi-Fi, which I think seems more than adequate for small hash rate home miners.
I mean, definitely, especially you pointed it out. It's like a small home miner that you do have at home. It's not like an industrial thing that you put like 200 in a shelf and you mine Bitcoin. No, you have a couple of them probably. We do have some crazy people that we have seen that show pictures of having like, what was it, 200 Bitaxe? That was an insane picture.
Yeah, like, it was like 110, that guy in his face.
That was insane.
That's insane.
If anybody does have the picture and can link it in the chat, that would be insane. There was one crazy dude who posted that one day, and it's just bonkers. You should use it as...
Mine, though, got a pretty sweet collection, and the cool part is he built them all. They're all handmade, so that's pretty...
let's quickly see. We do have a couple of things in the chat. Any questions there?
Shay OJ says, I built a software program that is using an ESP32 to act as an admin panel and proxy stratum to Bitaxe. Early stages, but that be used here. Possibly. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what that would be, but
I mean,
play around with it.
You could have like just some tinkering. You could theoretically create a PCB with 20 BAP ports on it and have some sort of a UART switcher on there and connect all your Bitaxes over the BAP with it. That would be possible, and you could control all of them, but I don't know if that would make sense, especially having like cables all over your office. The Wi-Fi approach is really nice to most of the people because you can control it from wherever you want. You don't need to go to it. You don't need to press buttons or anything else.
Yeah, Wi-Fi comes with a sort of built-in hub. You know what I mean? Like everyone's got their Wi-Fi access point. Essentially is a hub, so you kind of get that for free. I think some of the things that the BAP is good for is things like what Duncan made, where you have a display of LEDs that reacts to certain things on the Bitaxe. If you wanted to have a bigger display, I think that the BAP protocol would be great for the people making the Bitaxe Touch or other big displays that need to get a lot of information from the Bitaxe. Now they can just do this with, once the BAP protocol is integrated, they can just do this with mainline ESP miner, and you don't have to have a separate fork to do that. I think that'll be pretty slick. I had always thought it would be cool to have a solar power supply for the Bitaxe, and so that could communicate with the Bitaxe over the BAP port. Like for instance, cloud just went over. We don't have much power coming out of the solar panel. Turn the Bitaxes down.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a cool approach to use it for that. One thing that I need to make sure is what I wanted to do is I tested it obviously locally, and that's a nice touch, but just telling the people, hey, it worked on my PC doesn't make sense. So what I need to do alongside with releasing this protocol, I also need to basically apply or create some sort of a draft firmware for another ESP so that people can play around with it and they do get an understanding of how to use it. It is straightforward because basically you do have like 27 different commands that you could send over, and depending on that you do get a response, and depending on what kind of command it is, it's either a subscription, it's a sort of a post message where you do try to change stuff, or it's just some information. So
we should have probably a version, when you first connect, it sends the version of the BAP protocol that's being run, because I'm sure once we get this going, there'll be things that people come up with, like, oh, we got to have this, or it'll be, way more useful if it works.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a good one, because currently what I do is if I connect other devices to the BAP port, the other device that's trying to utilize it is waiting for one specific command. It's my test message, and in the test message I do tell it BAP initialize test message, and only if this message has been received by the other device is actually starting to subscribe to it. So yeah, I could add in something like a version control in there, and then you would need to have your receiving device looking for a specific version, and if the version is higher from the Bitaxe than what you do have on your receiving device, then it's probably either a breaking change or you cannot use the whole functionality.
Yeah, this can get a little tricky, but I guess in the beginning it would be helpful to have that in there.
Yeah, as always, in the beginning it will be an easy work in progress early version, as with the Bitaxe and the first firmware that we had. So it's always some work in progress here. And literally, I'm so stoked. Have you guys actually watched all the PRs and stuff like this that we had the last 6 weeks? It's so insane. We have 4, if I'm not mistaken, 4 new maintainers or developers that joined in there, and one of them is Doug Eggs. He's producing so many new PRs and improvements, especially on the UI. It's insane and really good to see that, because at some point, I do remember that 3 months back, it was just like 2 or 3 people that are maintaining the code. And now we are finally back to something like 6 or 7 people that are working on it, which is awesome.
It is really awesome. I'm so excited to see that. I'll like check my email in the morning and I get a notification from GitHub every time, and they'll be like,
Oh no, I disabled that.
15 notifications. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, just trying to keep up, but it's really cool. Yeah, shout out to Duckaxe and the long, complicated Fox name, and Mutatron and Wanklu. You guys are doing a lot of awesome work. It's cool to see.
All right. I do think we have talked a little bit about the BAP. So let's see. Badger asked, totally agree on the Wi-Fi. Okay, it's nice that we do agree that we disagree. I wasn't criticizing, just interested in the technicalities of it. No, wait, that's not a question. He asked something earlier. Could the integration of the Ethernet speed up the ping to the pool? Probably should be the question. Without router, or is it wired security issues? So first things first, obviously Ethernet does have a lower ping compared to Wi-Fi because you don't need to travel over a Wi-Fi signal. Technically speaking, it could also be lower, but that's another story. But I'd say if you do have in your office your router and next to you your Bitaxe, and now you want to try to plug in an Ethernet cord, it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't actually boost up your latency significantly enough. We're talking about microseconds. That's probably better compared to Wi-Fi. So from that regard, it doesn't really make sense. And security-wise, we always do get this from multiple people that are asking, well, please enable some sort of a password on the Bitaxe dashboard, or is it even secure to use it without a password? The standard reply that we do have to that is, well, if you're so concerned about someone else going onto your dashboard, then you might need to fix your Wi-Fi network, not the Bitaxe.
Yeah, I mean, it's all encrypted over Wi-Fi. So you need to change the password on your Wi-Fi.
For that, yeah.
And I guess Ethernet would be the same. I mean, if someone actually, I mean, Ethernet isn't encrypted over the wire. So if someone just plugs into your Ethernet port, then yeah, they can.
Yeah.
They can get on your network.
There's so many things to argue about what is secure and what's not secure. But talking about that, maybe one last question before we do move away from this Ethernet topic. Do you plan to implement this into the Ember 1?
Ethernet?
Uh-huh.
So the Ember 1 is just a hash board. So
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The control board is a
in
different
whatever
one. The
control
Libra.
board you use, you can have Ethernet for sure. I think the sort of reference design control board that Schnitzel is working on is called the Libra board, and I believe that will have Ethernet because the Raspberry Pi compute module that we're using on that supports Ethernet, and it's easy to add because it's running Linux. And this is also the kind of device where you could load a USB dongle for, I don't know, like a fiber optic adapter or who knows what. Like it has like real USB ports, it's running Linux. But none of those things are a function necessarily of the Ember 1. The Ember 1 has a single USB port, and that is just only supports USB serial.
By the way, do you want to talk about that and what's going on with that as well?
Sure, yeah. So the Ember 1, I released the design V3. That is working, but of course V4 is hot on its heels. It was going to be just a couple changes for V4, but actually got a bunch of good suggestions from the community and a few other things that I found. Adding some protection. We're going to have reverse polarity protection.
Ooh.
Some TVS diodes to protect against overvoltage. both on USB and on power and on the input and output of the power supply, so faults won't necessarily destroy your ASICs. On that board, it's fairly low-hanging fruit to add those things, so we're going to do that for V4. Changing up the temperature, measurement, strategy a little bit. Before I just had two like air temperature sensors, but I decided to get rid of one of the air temperature sensors and go with a on-chip like thermal diode sensor. Of course, there's 12 chips, so I'm only doing one of them, but I thought that probably would be better than not having any die temperature sensors. So with that said, all of those changes, I've got them all in. They're all done. I've ordered boards to test for myself. If that goes well, then we will release V4. We're going to do a group buy on that for people who are part of the 256 Foundation Telegram group. We'll do a small group buy there for people to get their hands on it, ideally for developers who want to work on it. But yeah, that's coming along. And of course, the first Ember one, the 00, uses the BM1362 chips out of the S19J Pro. But the next one, the Ember 101, is going to use the Intel BZM2 chips.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, that should be pretty cool. The 256 Foundation got a donation from Block of 256,000 of those Ember 1 chips for free. Or, sorry, the Intel chips for free. This was kind of like in the middle of the development of the Ember 100, and I really wanted to switch because it makes so much more sense. Like the J Pro chips and the Intel chips are actually very similar performance-wise, but we figured it would be better to just go ahead and finish it up and then switch. But I think that the Intel BZM2 chip-based Ember 1 would be pretty cool, and it'll be nice because the chips are available brand new for free. And
at least for a certain amount.
Well, if we go through the 256,000 of them that we have donated, then I've heard in sort of no uncertain terms that there are millions more around that are just sitting, rotting in warehouses. So I think we basically have an unlimited supply of those. The downside is they're just kind of old chips at this point, so the efficiency is not super good.
So you need to make something nice with them. Maybe, Duncan, that's a new coffee warmer, but this time open source.
Yes. If anyone's interested in working with them, they're available. The 256 Foundation is giving them away for free for people who are working on open source projects. You're not allowed to sell the chips, but you can make a miner and sell that. Anyways, that's pretty exciting. I'm also working on a Bitaxe with those chips, so that will be coming soon. I finished the schematic for it this week and got pretty far on the layout, the hardware layout. K1, they do require level shifting across voltage domains, and there's potentially more voltage domains because the chip's core voltage is 0.7 volts. But we have a data sheet for it and a reference design, and they show just a simple diode level shifter. So I'm going to give that a try.
Really? That's it? No logic shifter?
No, they show basically a resistor and a diode. Yeah, for level shifting across voltage domains.
Okay. It's one of the things, as far as I understand it, the way that this level shifting thing needs to happen, is because it has to do with the difference between the I/O voltage and the core voltage. For example, on the BM1362, no level shifting is needed because the core voltage is 0.3 volts and the I/O voltage is 1.2 volts. So there's a pretty big difference there. So I think the logic level thresholds, even when you're going across voltage domains, it can still work. But so now on the BZM2, we're at 0.7 volts core voltage, but still 1.2 volts on the I/O voltage. Voltage differential is higher than that core voltage. It's gonna be really an interesting design, especially as you said, like there is quite a substantial amount of them available. So creating something
The,
with
the
them.
BM1397 is, yes, it's 1.8 volts IO, but it's also 1.5 volts core voltage.
Wait, what?
Or 1.4. 1.4. Yeah, it's 1.4 volts.
But it's the same as the J Pro, so 19 joules per terahash, approximately.
Wait, sorry. The 1397, I'm talking about the core voltage. And the
Yeah.
core voltage on the BM1397 is
1.4.
1.4 volts. And the IO voltage is 1.8 volts. So if you look at a S17 hash board, which is what those BM1397s come from, they don't have level shifters.
Yeah, correct.
But they do have the footprints for it, and they're DNP. So clearly they were like unsure if they were going to need them or not. It's really weird. Like you can clearly see where the level shifter circuit would go across each voltage domain, and there's just nothing there. And so yeah, it does work without a level shifter, but
Some of these designs that they do release are so weird.
yeah, right? It's just like testing it in public.
I mean, one of the coolest things that we did is, I do remember that, probably 1.5 years back. Yeah, certainly. I was sitting with P-Max and a couple others in a restaurant eating some pizza, and we had 2 hash boards with us. So we were like 4 nerds sitting in a restaurant and just staring at a hash board with desorted ASICs and trying to figure out some stuff for some other boards that he was working on. This just remembers me of that. It was so cool because on all these boards that we've taken a look on, as you pointed out, it's sometimes so weird what they do, and then in the later process they just don't change it because they don't want to modify the layout again. They just want to ship out a product.
Yeah, I mean, Bitmain moves very fast, very, very fast, and I think that's gotten them where they are, which is like 80% of the market. So now they have the money to move even faster, but we need to stop being reliant on Bitmain, that's for sure.
All right.
Cool. We got some hashboard pics posted in the chat here. Man, I've spent so many hours looking at these things, like my old friend, you know.
Just make sure to don't get drowned into that or into hashboards. All right. I do think we can quickly talk a little bit about the last 2 versions that we had of ESP Miner, because we haven't talked about it on the last town hall entirely, and we do have a new release of the version 2.8.1, which was just one bug fix by Montatrum. Shout out to Montatrum for doing that, because he quickly found a memory leak in the API. So everyone who is not using the version 2.8.1 but is running 2.8.0, I highly do recommend to upgrade to 2.8.1, because this bug fix, you should use that. You don't want your memory to leak and out of a sudden your Bitaxe stops working. You don't want that. But I want to give.
Nobody got time for that.
Nah. But I want to give a little bit of a future lookout into what's coming with the next release, the version 2.9.0. We do have the first beta version of it out, and if I do find some time in the next couple of days, probably not because I'm in Prague speaking about Bitaxe on the stage there, but if I do find time in the next couple of days, I'll make sure to review more of these pull requests that we do have. But so far we have nice new changes. One of the coolest things that I always do love is we have code cleanup, which is so good, especially like if you do have a PR that does have more removed lines than added. That's the grail, the holy grail. I love that. I love to see that every single time. But anyway, with 2.9.0, there will be a little bit of a change to some things. One thing, we updated the README, so the people do know what is the latest release and they get pointed into that, because there was so much trouble with the branches that we do have, and I do hope, fingers crossed, that we're now finalized on this. We earlier, a couple weeks ago, we were still using something like a 2-branch design, sort of, where we have the master branch only being on the latest release, and then we do have the dev latest branch for doing the actual development. The issue with that is that, well, if you have some hotfixes or major or important changes that you want to push out and do a bug fix or a minor version change, for example the version 2.8.1, then you actually need to push it into master. Then you need to make sure that you can also integrate this into the dev latest, and obviously dev latest is always so far apart from master that it was a pain in the ass to do that. So what we came up with was of actually removing the dev latest. Now the development starts again on master, but for every release that we do it in the same style that Bitcoin Core does it. We have a new branch, for example the branch v2.8.x, because in this branch will go every other hotfix that will also go into the next release. And this hopefully helps us for future releases and eliminates all the pain that we had. I probably destroyed the branches like 2 or 3 times now over the last 2 years. So hopefully this never happens again.
Never.
Nah.
Famous last word.
But another cool thing is that we do have a little bit of improvement when it comes to Stratum. For example, we have this thing of quick links where if you do connect yourself to a added pool that we do have in the firmware, then you do have a quick link. That's a nice one. But what we're currently testing is the mining suggest difficulty sent over after we actually authorize to the pool, which is a change to how we did it previously. So the beta version that we are now working on will go under a little bit more of extended testing, so that we do make sure we don't break anything, and we also need to make sure that we do test as many pools as possible, because in the end of the day, yeah, you need to have at least 5 or 6 devices to test multiple pools, and then you need to switch them multiple times. It's a little bit of a task. So if anybody of you is actually interested in becoming a firmware tester, you can apply on this Discord server. We do have a apply for role channel where you can go in there, and then you just write in what kind of devices do you have, why do you want to become a tester, and what's your experience. And depending on what you do right in there, we will make you a firmware tester, and you get access to a channel called Firmware Tester Channel, where we do discuss what is working and what's not working. It is locked down to only this wall, for the reason being that we don't want, I'm sorry for calling this out, we don't want normies that are not stupid enough to test firmware shit beta that we're working on in there. For the reason being, otherwise they would ask all day long any questions, and that would distract probably the development. But it's open to read.
It's not a place for tech support.
No.
Or sort of advocacy for features or anything like that. It's for testing the current beta firmware.
Yeah. And yes, that's for sure. And supporting the people that are actually breaking the devices with the betas that we're testing on.
That's true. That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
You load a beta up and
Yeah.
screw something up. I guess there's some support that needs to happen there. We're so good now that rarely happens.
And I'm really glad that we do have this sort of monthly release. We are not tied to every month needs to be a new release. I mean, sometimes the release will be on the last day of the month. Sometimes the release will be in the first week of the next month. We don't have a timeline, but we now do have a vision of what we're doing. Because we discussed this months ago, Scott, you and I, we discussed this a long time ago, probably multiple times. That doesn't really make sense to just push out something because it's working. We need to have some sort of consistency, but we don't want to be in a specific timeline that would lock us down and tell us, well, at the end of the month, you need to be done. No, if it takes like 7 more days, well, so be it. And now we don't have these random releases. Apart from hot fixes.
It's not going to do anyone any favors if we release, software that's broken. So I think it's worth taking the time to make sure it's tested and working right and get all the updates in there that make sense.
Well, yeah, I don't actually see any questions in the chat. So just a reminder for everybody who's in the audience, and if you do have any sort of a question, if you want to ask them, feel free to do so. For everybody who's listening to this later on, if you don't know what this is, what we're talking about, we do have a couple of websites. One of the nicest ones is the Bitaxe.org website, where you do get the basic information about the Bitaxe project. If you want to know more about all the projects and a little bit more detail about it, then you can go over to our wiki page, which you can find on osmu.wiki. And if you're then still interested in it, we do have a Discord server where all these communications and all these town halls do happen. You can find this under discord.gg/OSMU. So with that being said, feel free to ask any questions if you do have them. I need to say, I'm a little bit nervous about next week. I don't know what to expect. Maybe you do have a couple of good inputs for me, Scott, because you spoke on a couple stages with more than just 10 people listening.
You'll do fine. I know a lot about this topic. So, practice your talk.
That's the thing.
Don't wait until the morning of to finish writing it.
To be honest,
I mean,
that was the first time that I actually studied my talk ever. Like, okay, I did it for my master degree, but well, that wasn't that important to me. But this one, I'm a little bit nervous about it. Let's see how this goes.
Practice it. Like say it out loud, even if it's to an empty room. As many times as you can. I always get super nervous too before these talks, and I find that just having practice makes me less nervous.
As soon as you're in there and you're starting to talk, it's gonna be a flow. And I do have some nice slides. I really do hope that they either live stream it or do record it so that I can show it to YouTube or this community here as well.
I hope they do too.
Yeah.
I want to see this. I'm seriously.
Like I'm on 2 stages. I'm
having so much fun.
On Thursday, I'm on the main stage and I'm talking about money backed by energy. That's a discussion that I'm attending to. It's like a half an hour, 20 minutes discussion. And
like a panel?
Yeah, it's like a panel. And the second one is my, I don't know how to call it, like basically my talk about the Bitaxe project on the expo stage. Keynote. Oh yeah, it's a keynote. I'm sorry. My goodness, this feels like
very
Apple.
Important keynote.
The most important keynote on this event.
Yes. This is the reason why everyone's there. Don't miss it.
Well, it's funny. It's gonna be funny and it's gonna be interesting, and hopefully, as far as I do know, Duncan will be there. He'll hold my hand and probably my beer as long as I'm on the stage, and afterwards we'll get drunk.
Yeah, that's right. If you forget your lines or whatever, if you're nervous, just dance. That's normal. Everyone will think that was
Oh man. By the way, I need to ask this. Are you attending to the Baltic Honey Badger? Because now that I'm going to the BTC Prague event, I probably will skip Honey Badger this year again. Because otherwise wifey would kill me.
Man, I don't think so. I really enjoyed it last year. Riga is a fantastic city. It was a great conference. Anna and Max, the people that put it on, are fantastic people. So I'm really sad about thought of not going to Honey Badger this year. So I don't know. We'll see. that it's at a different time this year. It's in August, and I have some family stuff planned then. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, Duncan, that's easier said than done, especially with having a youngster like mine.
Riga is a really cool city, man. Latvia it blew my mind. It was so awesome. It's like legit Europe with like cobblestone streets and old buildings and way less people, and things are cheaper. And when I was there, the weather was fantastic, and there's a lot of cool Bitcoiners in town. And they have this awesome bar called Underground that like everyone just shows up at like every night. Super cool. You can pay for your beers in Bitcoin. It was neat.
That's really neat. Well, I do have high hopes for Prague as well, because the last time I've been to Prague was like 2 or 3 years ago, and then I was just 3 days there on a underground shooting range, shooting each day and then going back to Germany. So I didn't saw that much about Prague, but this year I'll try to make sure that I do get a little bit more of the city.
They have that beer there called Budweiser, right? But it's not like American Budweiser.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
So I probably need to do some food vlogging over there as well. But man, I don't know. I'll probably be distracted all day long just by the event and talking to people.
For sure. These events are both crazy and amazing at the same time. It's like standing and talking all day long, all night long, getting not enough sleep, and then just repeating it day after day, and you're like, this is awesome. I love it.
Hey Duncan, I have a crazy idea. If they do not live stream or anything else of the event, do you have some sort of a camera? Can we live stream this to the town hall here?
Do it.
Oof. No, I
I mean, film camera and set it up.
I'm sure phone camera does work, but then I don't know if the quality will be good enough. I don't know. I'll take care of it, dude. You're the best. I love you. Okay, so we'll see. I do have some people there that I'm talking to when it comes to management of all these things, but they haven't clarified if they will do streaming or anything else.
Is it? Are you on the main stage or you're on a separate thing?
So the keynote will be on the expo stage. Yeah.
A lot of times they will record it. They won't stream it, but they will record it and post it later. I heard something crazy. Apparently at these conferences, like the big Bitcoin Magazine conference, is that it's like a union runs all the cameras there, and so like they have to pay some insane fee to live stream. So they only do that for the main stage. But they can record it and then publish it later and not have to like pay the union guys to do that.
So if they don't stream it, then Duncan will take care of it.
Well, like I'm saying, is it might be recorded and posted later.
Guerrilla streaming. I mean, it feels like Kino 2K or Movie 2K Pong something. Do you know this like guerrilla streaming, guerrilla recording website where you could basically watch every movie illegally on the internet? It was taken down years ago, but
I don't know anything about it. Never heard of it.
Nah. Anyway, it's probably a European thing.
No idea.
Yeah, Bruce is probably right. The internet connection will be shit over there. He had lags. They will be posting later. We'll see. We'll see. Duncan is insane, and his internet connection will be insane as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have to set up some satellite internet on the roof. And then,
yeah, definitely taking Starlink on the go in the backpack.
Do it. This is like a mandate now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, now
5
this
minutes?
this is going crazy. I think there's not that much more to say here on this town hall. It was nice talking about upcoming things, as always. It's always something brewing, something coming up. The firmware is going forward. We do have. I'm a little bit afraid. We are probably getting closer and closer to a point where we don't need to update the firmware so frequently.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna. What happened to? You just.
Oh, hello?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Did you forget to turn off your other internet connection?
No, my PC crashed. I don't know what happened.
Oh. That
So
was a quick recovery. Nice
Yeah.
job.
Yep. That's why you do have ZFS on all your computers.
Well, you have what?
I basically do have a RAID array which boots simultaneously, so if one drive fails, the other works, but it crashes for a second.
Dang. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I also played. I got myself a new laptop because my current one only has like 16 gigabytes of RAM, and having like 5 or 6 VS Code windows open does use a little bit of memory. So I got myself a new one, and this time I encrypted my disk. I don't know why I did this earlier. It's a nice feature. Like I was trying to do some shit with the NVMe drive. I wasn't even able to see anything of it without the encryption key. That is so nice, this feature. Needed to point that out.
That is nice. What kind of laptop did you get?
So I do hate naming schemes. It's the Dell Pro 14 Premium.
Dude, you're getting a Dell.
I used Dell previously. I do love the XPS lineup, especially the 13-inch one. Like, it just feels so nice. It's out of aluminium, it's lightweight, it does have plenty of power, but the worst part about it is the battery life. Battery life is like shit. I can work 2 hours on it and then it's dead. With this new one, it's up to 10 hours that I can work on it.
10 hours, nice.
Yeah. At least that's what the tests of the last 3 days revealed to me. I obviously need to test it extensively on the BTC Prague conference and see if this goes well over there or not. But yeah, it's a 14-inch. It feels so weird going from a 13-inch to a 14-inch. It's just 1 inch, but it feels so weird.
Are you running Windows on this thing? Or
No,
no Linux?
fuck Windows.
Okay, good answer.
No.
So it's very well supported by Linux.
So Dell, they do have this. Well, all our laptops are certified by Ubuntu and stuff like this. I usually do use KUbuntu because I don't like GNOME, so I use KDE Plasma, which is a desktop environment, and it's a nice one. It does have plenty of features. It's really great and does not have all this shit that GNOME does have in it. It needed like 2 days of me tweaking around a couple of things, but now it's working perfectly. The only thing that's not working and not supported is the camera, but that's intended. I don't want the camera to work on this.
Nice. You have security by Linux incompatibility.
Yeah, by Linux kernel errors.
Just try and turn on that camera and spy on me. It won't work.
Yeah, please fix my kernel. Okay, anyway, we're drifting away from all these nice topics. There's not anything else for me to say. The nicest thing that we can now do is hop over to the general chat. If you guys want to have a chat after this town hall, feel free to do so. I'll make sure to be there a little bit of time. And with that being said, Scott, I thank you for being with me here on the stage. I thank everybody who was in the audience and everyone who's listening to this later on. Love you all. Scott, any final words? You need to do your shout outs.
Okay. All right. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay. I'm just going to go down the list the way seemingly random way it has organized it here. First is Solar Satoshi. Shout out to Solar Satoshi, Matt, the legendary, the one and only longtime seller of Bitaxes and dedicated to open source. Huge shout out there. Frank Pliskin, I've seen you here a number of times. Great movie. I don't know you, but yeah, that was Escape from New York, right? That was a good movie. We got Com X10, also from Solo Satoshi, bunch of legends. Good to see you here. Ben C98, dude, what's up? Bitaxe Touch, good to see you. We have Decentralized Mind, of course. You call it the Bitaxe School, right? That's what you're officially calling your project. He's doing all kinds of hand-built Bitaxe stuff, which is super cool to see. Going from, I guess, not knowing how to do it all to pretty much getting it working. Bitaxe School project. We just got to get you that toaster oven set up, dude. I think that's going to change your world. Merlin M. Osterman. That is a very long name, but good to see you around. Thanks for joining the live stream. Duncan, of course, I am GPO, the one and only, the legendary. Well, let's see. He makes all kinds of cool stuff. The dude is a creative powerhouse. So
we just need to get him away from all this proprietary shit.
Yeah, of course. Everyone would be better if they got away from proprietary. in all points of their life. There's room for improvement everywhere. So we're all striving for greatness there. Man's got to eat. And then, of course, Ben, the legendary Ben of Bitaxe manufacturer, public pool fame. You all probably don't know this. Ben does all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. I don't know how this dude is so productive, but he's always working on crazy cool stuff and somehow tuning into the live stream too while being productive, I'm sure. I see Gamer Dude. I've never seen you before, but you have a very interesting icon. So what's up, Gamer Dude? Developer Algo, one of the earliest Bitaxe manufacturers and sellers and contributors. Developer Algo, were you on the Discord chat before OSMU? I think he was. So that's like OG for sure. Sean from IX Tech, manufacturer of Bitaxes, seller of Bitaxes, hacker extraordinaire. Good to see you. Trashman Dan, I like your name. OX Fox XO. You told me before how to pronounce your name and I forgot, but all kinds of rad PRs, front-end stuff on ESP Miner and AxeOS. Super appreciate all your help. What's up, dude? Nice. Hackers. There we go. That's how you... Foxo or Hexfox. Okay. Oh, look, you changed your name there. Hexfox. Got it. Oh my gosh, Stealth 2600. Talk about hacker names. Here we got Stealth 2600. Of course, the frequency by which both the whistle out of Captain Crunch cereal and the tone by which you could take over certain phone networks if you played a 2600 hertz tone into the phone system. So that is, of course, super legit. And Stealth 2600 has been around for a while. Good to see you. All right. Yeah, Hack the Planet. Brussel, what's up? Hack the Planet. Do it. Good to see you all. Thanks for joining.
Thank everybody for being in here. Don't forget, don't stop hashing. See you in 2 weeks.
Man, look at that cool, like, whiteout nerd Octax.
Oh, man.
That is beautiful.
Sean, I'm still waiting for my white Bitaxe. Just saying, beep, beep. This is man, so cool, man. Crazy cool. Oof. The Ocho. I love the Ocho. Mine are overheated. I don't like to see that, but I like the Ocho. And the XT60 connector, dude, that is so huge. we're getting now into a scene that's going to be really interesting, so you don't want to miss out on anything that's happening with OSMU. With that, I do thank everybody for being in here, but we will end this town hall right now here. So see you in 2 weeks, and keep hashing. Peace out.